The alarm started screaming across the Imperial Nexus station at exactly 0600 hours Galactic Standard Time. Every monitor in the command center flashed red. Every security protocol activated at once. The station's artificial gravity hiccuped for just a moment as emergency power systems kicked in across all 7 rings of the massive orbital platform. Commander Velia dropped the datapad she had been reading. Her pore widened as she stared at the main display screen. An unknown vessel had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. That should have been impossible. The Imperial Nexus existed in a carefully controlled space. Nobody entered this system without clearance. Nobody had entered uninvited in over 3,000 cycles. Identification! Velia barked at her sensor operator. The young officer's hands trembled over his controls. Commander, the ship is broadcasting on all standard frequencies. They are asking for docking permission. What species? The operator's voice became very quiet. They claim to be human, Commander. The entire command center went silent. Velia felt her blood turn cold. She had read the reports. Every officer in the Empire had read the reports about humanity, a species from a planet called Earth, a world that by all rights should have killed them 1,000 times over. Violent weather, unstable tectonics, predators that had evolved alongside them, diseases that mutated faster than any known pathogen in the galaxy. And the humans had not just survived, they had thrived. Send an emergency signal to the War Council, Velshaw said. Her voice remained steady through years of training. And keep that ship at maximum scanning range. I want to know everything about it. The human vessel was small. That was the first thing that surprised everyone. The Empire's scouts had observed human ships from a distance. They had seen massive colony vessels, military craft bristling with weapons. The ship looked like a simple transport. Clean lines, minimal weapon signatures. It was called the Quiet Thunder. According to the identification beacon, within the hour, Grand Admiral Kethar himself arrived at the command center. He was a Drathka, standing nearly 9 feet tall, with thick armored skin and 6 powerful arms. He had commanded fleets in 100 battles. He had overseen the integration of 70 different species into the Empire. He looked at the human ship on the screen and felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. They sent one ship to the capital of the Empire, he said slowly. Either they are fools, or this is a declaration of war. They have made no hostile moves, Admiral Velia reported. They continue to request docking permission. They say they have a diplomatic delegation that wishes to speak with the Emperor. Kethar's laugh was harsh. Diplomatic delegation? Do they think we are children? He turned to the communications officer. Tell them to hold position. If they move closer, we will consider it an act of aggression. Admiral, they are responding, the communications officer said. They say they will wait as long as necessary. They have brought gifts and formal credentials. They wish only to talk. The Grand Admiral stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he activated his personal communicator. This is Grand Admiral Kethar. Activate Protocol Omega-7. I want the 5th, 9th, and 12th fleets on standby. Raise planetary shields on all core worlds. This is not a drill. Across the Empire, sirens began to wail. The Galactic Senate convened an emergency session within 3 hours. Representatives from 200 species filled the Grand Chamber. Holographic projections showed senators who could not attend in person. The noise was deafening, as everyone tried to speak at once. Senator Pixna, a being made entirely of crystalline structures that reflected light and dazzling patterns, called for order. We must remain calm. We do not know the humans' intentions. We know their history, shouted Senator Garn, a bear-like creature covered in thick fur. We have intercepted their transmissions. They have spent their entire existence at war with each other, war with their planet, war with everything, and they survived it all, said Senator Maya quietly. She was a Selm, a species known for their analytical minds and cool logic. That is what should concern us. This species has faced extinction dozens of times. Natural disasters, nuclear weapons, biological plagues, climate collapse. They survived everything their world threw at them. And now they are here. Emperor Tholon entered the chamber. Everyone fell silent. The Emperor was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He had ruled for 6,000 cycles. He had seen the empire expand from 10 worlds to 10,000. He had never lost a war. What did they want? The emperor asked simply. The question hung in the air. Nobody had a good answer. Perhaps we should ask them, said Ambassador Cyrus. She was the empire's chief diplomat, a woman who had negotiated peace treaties and surrender documents for centuries. We can bring them aboard under heavy guard. Hear what they have to say. If they prove hostile, we eliminate them. And if they prove too dangerous to eliminate, Ask Senator Garney had no answer for that. The emperor made his decision. Bring them to the station. Full military presence. Scan them for weapons. Scan them for biological agents. Scan them for anything that could be used as a threat. But bring them here. I will see these humans for myself. The message was sent to the Quiet Thunder. Permission to dock was granted. Commander Velshaw watched on her screens as the human ship slowly approached the massive station. Her scanners worked continuously. The ship carried 23 life forms, all human. No weapons beyond basic personal sidearms. No bombs. No biological weapons. No obvious threats that made her more nervous, not less. The docking bay had been cleared. 500 Imperial soldiers lined the walls. All carried plasma rifles. All had their fingers near the triggers. Automated defense turrets tracked every movement. Medical teams stood ready, with containment fields in case the humans carried unknown diseases. Commander Vela stood at the front. She wore full combat armor. Her hand rested on her sidearm. She watched as the airlock cycled and the human ship's door opened. The first human to emerge was a woman. She was tall by human standards, but small compared to most Imperial species. She had dark skin and hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore a dark blue uniform with no weapons visible. She looked around the docking bay at the hundreds of armed soldiers pointing weapons at her, and she smiled. "Hello," the woman said in perfect Imperial Standard language. "My name is Elena Voss. I am the ambassador from the United Earth Coalition. We are very happy to be here." Velia stared. The woman was either insane or the bravest being she had ever met. "You are surrounded by weapons, Ambassador. You are in the heart of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. And you are happy." Elena's smile did not waver. "Of course. We have traveled a very long way. We are tired, we are hungry, but we are here to do something humanity has dreamed about for generations. We are here to meet our neighbors." Behind Elena, more humans emerged from the ship. Scientists, scholars, linguists, all unarmed, all looking around with expressions of wonder and curiosity. One of them, a young man with red hair, actually waved at the soldiers. "Take them to the diplomatic quarters," Velshaw ordered. "Full security detail. Monitor everything." As the humans were escorted away, Elena stopped and turned back to Velshaw. "Commander, we brought gifts. Cultural items from Earth. Music, art, food. We hope to share them with anyone interested. We also have formal documents outlining our intentions and our hope for peaceful relations." "Your intentions will be examined thoroughly," Velshaw said. "We expected nothing less," Elena replied. "Take all the time you need. We are patient people." That night, the Imperial War Council met in the deepest, most secure chamber in the Nexus. Holographic displays showed the human delegation in their quarters. The humans were sleeping. Some were reading. One was playing a strange musical instrument that made soft, pleasant sounds. "They are too calm." Grand Admiral Keithar said, "No species walks into the Imperial capital this relaxed. They are either ignorant of the danger they are in, or they know something we do not." "Our intelligence reports are clear," said General Moxar. "Humanity is a warrior species. They have never known true peace. Their entire planet is scarred by warfare. Cities destroyed and rebuilt. Ecosystems collapsed and restored. They have weapons that could sterilize their own world, and they nearly used them. But they did not." Ambassador Cyrus pointed out, "They came to the edge of their own destruction and pulled back. That shows wisdom, or it shows they are waiting for a bigger target." Keithar growled. Emperor Thulvan watched the sleeping humans on the screen. "Tomorrow, we will speak with this Ambassador Voss. We will offer them the standard terms. They will become a vassal species. They will pay tribute. They will accept imperial law. If they refuse, We will show them what happens to those who defy the Empire. And if they accept, asked Cyrus. Then we will watch them very carefully, the Emperor said. Because something tells me these humans are not like any species we have encountered before. In her quarters, Ellen Voss lay awake. She stared at the ceiling and thought about everything that had brought humanity to this moment. The centuries of preparation, the debates, the arguments, the careful planning. Some had wanted to come to the Empire with warships and demands. Others had wanted to avoid contact entirely. But Elena and those who thought like her had argued for a different approach. Show strength through confidence. Show power through restraint. Let the Empire make the first move. Let them reveal who they truly were. So far, everything was proceeding exactly as expected. The Empire had mobilized its fleets. They had activated planetary defenses. They had surrounded the human delegation with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. And Elena had smiled at them all, because the one thing the Empire did not know, the one thing their intelligence could not have discovered, was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for 300 years. Every possible scenario had been studied. Every potential response had been planned. Humanity had built its strategy on one simple principle that had served them throughout their violent history. Never let them see you sweat. Elena finally closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be interesting. The Empire would make their demands. They would expect fear or anger or submission. They would get none of those things. They would get only what humanity chose to give them. And that, Elena thought, as she drifted off to sleep, would be the most terrifying thing of all. In the command center, Commander Vela watched the monitors showing the sleeping humans. She had a strange feeling in her chest. Something was wrong, or perhaps something was very right in a way the Empire had never experienced before. She did not sleep that night. She kept watching, waiting, but the humans did nothing. They simply slept peacefully in the heart of the most dangerous place in the galaxy. And somehow that was the most unsettling thing of all. The grand throne room of the Imperial Nexus was designed to intimidate. The ceiling stretched up 200 feet. Massive pillars carved from stone, taken from the first conquered world, lined both sides. The Emperor's throne sat on a platform that required climbing 50 steps. Every detail sent a message. You are small. You are insignificant. You are here because the Empire allows it. Ambassador Elena Voss walked into the throne room wearing the same simple blue uniform from the day before. She did not look up at the ceiling in awe. She did not hesitate at the stairs. She climbed them steadily, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. Behind her, 2 members of her delegation followed. Dr. James Morrison, a xenobiologist with gray hair and kind eyes, and Lieutenant Sarah Chen, a young officer whose job was officially listed as security liaison. Emperor Tholan watched them approach. He was flanked by his war council on one side and the Senate leadership on the other. Hundreds of officials and nobles filled the chamber. All eyes were on the humans. Elena reached the top of the stairs and stopped at the respectful distance. She did not bow. She did not kneel. She simply inclined her head in a gesture of acknowledgement between equals. "Your Majesty," Elena said, "thank you for receiving us. This is an historic moment for humanity." The Emperor studied her carefully. "You come to the heart of the Galactic Coordinated Empire with a single ship and a handful of people. You either have great courage or great foolishness. Perhaps both," Elena said with a slight smile. "Humans have often been accused of being foolishly courageous. We prefer to think we are courageously optimistic." A ripple of surprise went through the assembled officials. Nobody spoke to the Emperor with such casual confidence. Grand Admiral Kethar stepped forward. "You stand before the ruler of 10,000 worlds," Cathsar said, his voice deep and threatening. "You represent a single planet. You have no fleets, no allies, no power base. What makes you think you can negotiate with the Empire as anything other than supplicants?" Elena turned to face him. "Admiral, we are not here to negotiate our surrender. We are here to establish diplomatic relations. There is a difference, is there?" The Admiral moved closer. "Every species that has encountered the Empire has been given the same choice. Join us and prosper under our rule. Refuse and face the consequences. What makes you think humanity deserves different treatment?" "We do not think we deserve different treatment," Elena replied calmly. "We simply think there might be options you have not considered before. Emperor Tholvan leaned forward on his throne. Explain. Elena gestured to Dr. Morrison, who stepped forward with a small data device. If I may present our offer, Ambassador Cyrus moved to accept the device. She examined it carefully with multiple scanning tools before nodding to the Emperor. The data was transferred to the main holographic display. What appeared was not a surrender document. It was a proposal for mutual recognition. Two sovereign governments acknowledging each other's right to exist and self-govern. Trade agreements based on fair exchange. Cultural programs, scientific cooperation, security arrangements that respected both parties' territorial integrity. The silence in the throne room was absolute. Senator Gar was the first to speak. This is outrageous. The Empire does not make deals with primitive species. We are not primitive, Dr. Morrison said quietly. Different from you, yes, but not primitive. You have barely left your own star system. Another senator shouted. True, Elena acknowledged. We are young as galactic civilizations go. But youth does not equal weakness, and inexperience does not equal inability. Grand Admiral Cathar laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Do you have any idea what the Empire could do to your world? We could sterilize your planet from orbit. We could dismantle your cities. We could end your species before your next sunrise. Lieutenant Chen spoke for the first time. Her voice was steady. Yes, Admiral. We are aware of your capabilities. Our intelligence is quite thorough. Then you understand you have no leverage, Cathazar said. Leverage is an interesting concept, Elena said. The Empire assumes that military might equals negotiating power, but there are other forms of power. Information, culture, technology. Will pretty words, Senator Ma said. But words do not stop plasma cannons, Elena Meteris. No, they do not. But plasma cannons do not build lasting peace either. They create resentment, resistance, rebellion. How many of your vassal species are truly loyal, Senator? How many would break free the moment they saw weakness in the Empire? The chamber erupted in angry shouts. How dare this human question the Empire's stability? Guards moved forward, but Emperor Tholan raised a hand. The room fell silent again. You speak dangerously, Ambassador, the Emperor said. I speak truthfully, Your Majesty, Elena replied. Humanity has governed itself for thousands of years. We have made every mistake you can imagine. Tyranny, democracy, monarchy, anarchy. We have tried them all. We know what works and what does not, and we know that power built only on fear is power that will eventually crumble. And yet you fear us. Grand Admiral Cathar said smugly. Why else would you come here trying to negotiate instead of simply ignoring us? Elena's expression became serious. We do not fear you, Admiral. We respect your power. There is a difference. Fear would make us run or submit. Respect makes us seek understanding. Understanding, the Emperor repeated. What is it you wish to understand? Whether the Empire is capable of growth, Elena said. Whether you can envision a galaxy where not every species must bow to you, where strength comes from cooperation rather than domination. Ambassador Cyrus stepped forward. Your Majesty, perhaps we should review the standard vassal contract with the humans. Let them understand what the Empire offers in exchange for loyalty. An excellent idea, the Emperor agreed. The holographic display changed. Now it showed the standard terms that every species accepted upon joining the Empire. Tribute payments, military conscription rights, territorial concessions, legal subordination to imperial law, resource sharing requirements. The list went on and on. Elena read through it carefully. Her expression did not change. When she finished, she looked up at the Emperor. This is very thorough, she said, but I am afraid we must decline. The room exploded again. Decline? Nobody declined the Emperor's offer. You refuse? Keithsar's hand moved to his weapon. Then you choose war. No, Elena said firmly. We choose neither vassalage nor war. We choose to return home and continue building our civilization in peace. If the Empire wishes to trade with us, we are happy to trade. If you wish to exchange ambassadors, we welcome that. If you wish to share knowledge, we are eager students, but we will not submit to foreign rule. Impossible, Senator Garn shouted. No species has ever been given such an option. Then perhaps it is time to create a new option, Elena said. Emperor Thalavan stood. The entire chamber went silent. He walked down the steps slowly until he stood directly in front of Elena. He towered over her. She did not back away. You understand that if you leave here without accepting our terms, the Empire will view humanity as a potential threat, the Emperor said quietly. We understand, Elena replied just as quietly. And humanity will view the Empire the same way. Two powers watching each other carefully, neither trusting the other, both preparing for the worst. Is that really the future you want, Your Majesty? What I want is order, the Emperor said. The Empire brings stability to the galaxy. We end wars between species. We prevent chaos. You replace many small conflicts with one massive power structure that cannot tolerate dissent. Elena said, That is not peace, Your Majesty. That is control. And control is necessary, the Emperor said. For some species, perhaps, Elena acknowledged. But not for all. Not for humanity. The Emperor stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to his war council. What are our options? Grand Admiral Cathsar spoke immediately. We can force compliance, Your Majesty. One battle group could secure their home system within a week. At what cost? Ambassador Cyrus asked. Our intelligence reports suggest humanity has significant defensive capabilities. And more importantly, they have shown a willingness to sacrifice everything to remain free. A species that has survived planetary-level extinction events will not surrender easily. Then we destroy them utterly, Senator Gar suggested, and make martyrs of them. Senator Ma shook her head. News of such an action would spread throughout the Empire. Every vassal species would wonder if they might be next. We would create more problems than we solve. Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. If I may offer a perspective in human history, empires that relied on force alone always eventually fell. Rome, the Mongols, the British, the American, the Chinese, the European Union, all powerful in their time, all eventually collapsed or transformed. The ones that lasted longest were those that learned to adapt, to incorporate new ideas, to allow some level of autonomy to their subjects. We are not your primitive human empires, Cathsar growled. No, you are much larger and more powerful, Morrison agreed, which means your fall, if it comes, will be correspondingly more catastrophic, unless you learn to change. Enough. The Emperor raised his hand. This discussion is pointless. The Empire does not change for one small species, from one unremarkable world. Elena nodded. Then we are at an impasse, Your Majesty. We wish you no harm. We seek no conflict, but we will not be ruled by others. We have fought too hard for our freedom to give it away now. She turned and began walking toward the stairs. Her delegation followed. The assembled officials watched in shock. Nobody walked away from the Emperor without permission. Ambassador, the Emperor called. Elena stopped and turned back. Your proposal for mutual recognition, leave it with us. We will consider it. Elena's eyes widened slightly. It was the first crack in the Empire's facade. Of course, Your Majesty. Take all the time you need. As I said, we are patient. How patient? The Emperor asked. Elena smiled. Humanity learned to use fire 1 million years ago. Your Majesty, we learned to farm 10,000 years ago. We learned to split the atom less than 300 years ago. We are a species that thinks in long timelines. We can wait. She descended the stairs. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. As the humans left, Emperor Thulvan returned to his throne. He sat heavily. Well, he asked his council. They are either brilliant or insane, Ambassador Cyrus said. Can they be both? Senator Mia wondered. Grand Admiral Kethar stared at the doors where the humans had exited. Your Majesty, I do not trust them. They are hiding something. No species walks into this situation with such confidence, unless they have a hidden advantage. Then find it, the Emperor ordered. I want to know everything about humanity, their capabilities, their weaknesses, their secrets, everything. And if we find they are a threat, Kethar asked. The Emperor's expression was cold. Then we eliminate the threat, but quietly. I will not have it said that the Empire fears one small species. But as the council dispersed, the Emperor remained on his throne thinking. Something about Ambassador Voss troubled him. It was not what she said. It was what she did not say. The confidence in her eyes. The calmness in her voice. It was the certainty of someone who had already won a game that had not even been fully explained yet, and that the Emperor thought was truly terrifying. Grand Admiral Cathar stood in the war room, deep beneath the Imperial Nexus station. Around him, holographic displays showed the positioning of human vessels throughout their small territory. There were not many, perhaps 200 ships total. Most were civilian craft, transports, mining vessels, research stations. Only a handful appeared to be dedicated military ships. They are vulnerable, General Moxar said. Their merchant vessels travel along predictable routes with minimal escort. Their colonies are spread thin. Their defensive installations are basic. Too vulnerable, Cathazar muttered. This is a species that survived nuclear warfare and somehow avoided destroying themselves. They are not fools. Perhaps they simply do not expect us to act, suggested Commander Ross, the intelligence chief. They came here believing in peaceful negotiation. They may genuinely think we will honor diplomatic protocols. Cathar shook his massive head. No, Ambassador Voss was too calm, too prepared. She knew exactly what she was doing in that throne room. These humans are playing a game, and we do not understand the rules yet. Then let us test them, Aro said. The standard procedure for new species. Stage a pirate raid. See how they respond. Their reaction will tell us everything we need to know about their true capabilities. The Admiral considered this. It was true that the Empire had used this tactic before. Stage an attack using unmarked ships. If the species called for Imperial help, they were weak and would make compliant vassals. If they fought back incompetently, they were no threat. If they fought back competently, the Empire knew what military response would be required later. Very well, Cathar said. But use our best crews. If the humans are hiding something, I want experienced warriors to discover it and make it convincing. A real threat, not a simple probe. 3 days later, the merchant vessel Fortune's Favor drifted through the space between human colonies. It was a large ship by human standards, carrying manufactured goods and raw materials. The crew numbered 23. Captain Marcus Chen sat in the command chair, reviewing shipping manifests and thinking about how boring this run had become. Then his sensor officer looked up sharply. Captain, we have contacts. 6 ships dropping out of FTL. They are surrounding us. Chen leaned forward. Identification? None, sir. They are not broadcasting any signals, but their weapon signatures are powering up. Battle stations, Chen ordered calmly. Send a distress signal on all frequencies. The Fortune's Favor was not a warship. It had basic shields and a few point defense weapons for asteroid deflection. Against 6 military vessels, it should have been helpless. The pirate ships moved into attack formation. Then Captain Chen did something unexpected. He started laughing. Sir, his first officer asked nervously. Send a message to those ships, Chen said, still chuckling. Tell them we know who they are. Tell them we know this is a test. Tell them we will play along. But they should know something important. What should we tell them, sir? Chen's smile was predatory. Tell them we have already won. In the lead Imperial ship, Commander Zixstar heard the message and felt a chill run down his spine. How did they know? The ships were unmarked. The crews were the best stealth operatives in the fleet. There should have been no way for the humans to identify them. Ignore the message, Zixstar ordered. Proceed with the attack simulation. Target their engines. His weapons officer prepared to fire. Then every alarm on the ship started screaming. Commander, multiple contacts. Ships dropping out of FTL all around us. Zixstar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 12 human ships had appeared. Not warships. Merchant vessels like the Fortune's Favor, a mining barge, even what looked like a colony transport. But every single one of them had weapons ports opening, weapons that should not exist on civilian craft. Analysis. Zixstar barked. Sir, those are military-grade plasma cannons, missile batteries, electronic warfare suites. These civilian ships have been modified extensively. His tactical officer's voice was shaking. Sir, they have us surrounded. The Fortune's Favor broadcast again. As I said, we know who you are. We have known since you entered our space. Did you really think we would not notice Imperial drive signatures? We have been tracking you since you left the Nexus. Captain Chen's voice was pleasant, almost friendly. Now you can continue this exercise if you wish. We will defend ourselves. People will die, your people and ours. Or you can acknowledge that the test is over and everyone can go home safely. Your choice. Zixar had fought in dozens of battles. He had faced enemies that terrified most species, but he had never been in a situation quite like this. His orders were to test the humans, not to start an actual war. But if he backed down, it would show weakness. Maintain positions, he ordered. Do not fire, but do not retreat. For 10 seconds, both groups of ships sat in tense standoff. Weapons charged, but not firing. Shields up, but not attacking. Then something else appeared on Zixtar's sensors. Sir, we are receiving a transmission. It is from Earth itself. A human appeared on the view screen. An older woman in a military uniform. This is Admiral Rebecca Flores, of the United Earth Coalition Defense Force. I am speaking to the Imperial vessels currently engaged with our merchant fleet. You are in violation of our territorial space. You have threatened our civilians. Under our rules of engagement, we would be justified in considering this an act of war. Zixtar said nothing. He waited. Admiral Flores continued. However, we understand that this is likely a test. The Empire wants to see how we respond to pressure. Very well. Consider the test concluded. You have learned that we are not helpless, that we track all ships in our space, that every civilian vessel can become a military asset if needed, that we respond to threats with overwhelming force held under strict control. She leaned forward. Now, leave our space. If you do not, we will be forced to defend ourselves. And I promise you, Commander Czar, that is not an outcome anyone wants. The Imperial commander felt his blood run cold. She knew his name. They knew everything. How? He whispered. One of Captain Chen's crew appeared on screen next to Admiral Flores, a young woman with a friendly smile. Commander, humans have been listening to radio signals from space since we invented radio. We have been scanning for electromagnetic emissions, drive signatures, and quantum fluctuations for 300 years. Did you think we would stop when we found out we were not alone? We have listening posts throughout our space. We know when a ship enters our system before it knows we know. We track everything. Admiral Flores spoke again. Commander, please tell Grand Admiral Keithar that we appreciate the test. It was instructive for both sides. But if he wants to know our capabilities, he need only ask. We have nothing to hide. We are exactly what we appear to be. A species that prepares for the worst while hoping for the best. Zixtar made his decision. All ships, stand down. We are withdrawing. He looked at the screen. Admiral Flores, we will report this incident to our superiors. Please do, Flores said. And Commander, have a safe journey home. The Imperial ships jumped to FTL. The human vessels remained in position for several minutes. Then they too began dispersing, returning to their normal routes as if nothing had happened. On Earth, in the Defense Force headquarters, Admiral Flores let out a long breath. Her hands were shaking slightly. Did we just threaten the most powerful military in the galaxy? Her aide, Colonel Park, nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. And they backed down. They will not forget this, Flores said quietly. No, ma'am, but they will think twice before testing us again. I hope so, Flores said, because if they call our bluff, we are in serious trouble. Half those weapons on the civilian ships were mock-ups. The real military fleet is barely operational. We are running on smoke and mirrors here. Park smiled grimly. Then, it is a good thing humans are excellent liars when we need to be. Back at the Imperial Nexus, Grand Admiral Keithar listened to Commander Czar's report with growing disbelief. They surrounded you with civilian ships. Armed civilian ships, Admiral, and they knew we were coming. They were prepared. Keith slammed his fist on the table. How is that possible? We used stealth protocols. We masked our signatures. Apparently not well enough, sir. The humans have sensor technology we did not anticipate, and they have been monitoring all traffic near their space. What else? Keithar demanded. Zixtar hesitated. Admiral, they knew my name. They knew who I was before I identified myself. Their intelligence-gathering capabilities are far beyond what we estimated. The Admiral sat heavily. What do you recommend? Sir, I recommend we take the humans very seriously. This was not luck. This was planning. Deep planning. They have wargamed scenarios like this. They were ready for us. One species, Cathar muttered. One small species from one world. And they made Imperial Special Forces back down. Sir, it was the right call. If we had engaged, people would have died, and we would have started a war that the Emperor has not authorized. Cathazar knew Zixar was right, but had galled him. Dismissed, Commander. Say nothing of this to anyone outside the War Council. When he was alone, Cathazar activated a secure communication channel. Emperor Tholon's face appeared. Your Majesty, we have a problem. He explained the situation. The Emperor listened without interrupting. When Cathazar finished, there was a long silence. They are more capable than we thought, the Emperor said finally. Yes, Your Majesty. And they are not afraid to demonstrate that capability. But they did not attack, the Emperor noted. They could have destroyed our ships. They had the advantage. But they chose restraint. That troubles me even more, Cathar admitted. A species that can show such discipline is more dangerous than one that lashes out emotionally. Agreed. The Emperor thought for a moment. Continue gathering intelligence. But no more tests. No more provocations. If we are to deal with humanity, we must understand them fully first. And if we find they are too dangerous to coexist with, the Emperor's expression was cold. Then we will do what must be done. But carefully. Very carefully. On the quiet thunder, now departing the Imperial Nexus to return home, Ambassador Elena Voss received a coded message from Admiral Flores. She read it and smiled. Dr. Morrison noticed her expression. Good news? The Empire tested our merchant fleet. Our people handled it perfectly. Did anyone get hurt? Morrison asked with concern. No. That was the beautiful part. Everyone walked away. The Empire learned we are prepared. We learned they are cautious. Both sides benefit. Lieutenant Chen looked skeptical. You planned for them to test us. We planned for every possibility. Elena said that was one of the more likely scenarios. The Empire likes to know what it is dealing with. So we showed them strength, capability, but also restraint. And now, Chen asked. Elena looked out at the stars. Now we wait. We have shown them we cannot be easily conquered, but we have not shown them everything. Let them wonder. Let them investigate. Let them come to the conclusion on their own. What conclusion? Morrison asked. That fighting humanity would cost them more than they are willing to pay. Not because we are the strongest, but because we are the most stubborn. We have survived everything the universe threw at us. We will survive them too, one way or another. She turned back to her colleagues. The Empire has ruled through fear and force for thousands of years. They do not know how to handle a species that refuses to be afraid. That is our advantage. Not weapons, not ships, not technology. Our advantage is that we have already faced our worst fears on our own world and we survived. What can the Empire show us that is worse than what we have already endured? Pride, Morrison said softly. You are gambling that pride will not make them destroy us, just to prove they can. No, Elena said. I am gambling that wisdom will overcome pride, that the Emperor will realize that respect is earned, not demanded, and that sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when not to fight. And if you are wrong, Chen asked. Elena's smile faded. Then humanity will fight, and we will lose, but we will make them remember us. Every species they conquer afterwards will hear the story of the humans who refuse to bow, and one day, that story might inspire someone else to stand up too. That is a cold comfort, Morrison said. It is the only comfort available to a species that refuses to surrender its freedom, Elena replied. Our ancestors understood this. Every human who ever fought for liberty understood this. Some things are worth more than survival. The quiet thunder jumped to faster than light speed heading home. Behind them, the Imperial Nexus glowed against the stars, a monument to power and control. But somewhere in that massive station, people were beginning to ask questions. Dangerous questions. Questions about whether there might be another way to build a civilization, and that Elena knew was the seed she had come to plant. Analyst Fizesh was young for her position in Imperial intelligence. Only 42 cycles old, barely an adult by her species standards, but she had a gift for seeing patterns that others missed. While her superiors focused on human military capabilities and technological assessments, Sci-Fi had requested access to something different. She wanted to study human culture. Her supervisor, Director Karnax, had laughed at the request. Culture? We need to know their weapons, their strategies, their weaknesses, not their entertainment. But Sci-Fi had persisted. Director, we have analyzed their technology. It is good, but not exceptional. We have assessed their military. It is competent, but small. Yet they walked into the imperial capital with confidence. That confidence must come from somewhere. I want to understand the psychology of this species. Cax had eventually approved the request, mostly to keep the young analyst busy with harmless work. Now, 2 weeks later, Sieves sat in her small office, surrounded by holographic displays showing human movies, books, music, and art. What she found disturbed her deeply. She started with human fiction. Stories were important. They revealed what a culture valued, what it feared, and how it saw itself. Human stories were categorized into genres: romance, comedy, drama. But one genre appeared over and over again with startling frequency: apocalypse. Humans wrote stories about their world ending in every way imaginable. Nuclear war, biological plagues, asteroid impacts, climate collapse, artificial intelligence uprising, zombie outbreaks, alien invasion. The list went on and on. And these were not obscure stories. These were their most popular entertainment. More disturbing was what happened in these stories. The world would end. Civilization would collapse. Billions would die. But there were always survivors. Always. Humans struggling through impossible circumstances, fighting, adapting, rebuilding. Seish pulled up a human film called The Road. It showed a father and son walking through a dead world. Everything was gray. The sun was blocked. Plants were dead. Most humans had turned to cannibalism. Yet the father kept walking, protecting his son, searching for the coast for something better. The movie ended without clear hope, but the man had protected his son. The child would continue. Another film, Mad Max. The world had run out of water and oil. Society had collapsed into violent chaos. Yet the hero survived, adapted, found a way to live even in hell. Book after book showed the same pattern. The Stand, World War Z, Station 11, The Hunger Games, humanity facing extinction and somehow persisting. Sevesh began examining human history for comparison. She found the pattern was not just in fiction. It was in their actual past. 74,000 years ago, the Toba supervolcano eruption had nearly killed them. The human population dropped to perhaps 10,000 individuals. Most species would have gone extinct. Humans survived and spread across their world. 12,000 years ago, climate change destroyed the environment they had adapted to. They invented agriculture in response. 700 years ago, the Black Death killed half the population of their largest continent. They recovered and built the Renaissance. 80 years ago, they had split the atom and nearly destroyed themselves in nuclear warfare. They had stopped just short of annihilation. Every disaster made them stronger. Every setback taught them something. They did not just survive, they learned. Sieves began compiling a report. She worked for 3 days without sleep. When she finished, she requested an emergency meeting with Director Cax. Director, I need to present my findings to the War Council immediately. Cax looked annoyed. Analyst, I am sure your cultural research is interesting, but the War Council does not have time for Director. With respect, they need to hear this. The Empire is making a fundamental error in how we assess the human threat. Something in Sevesh's tone made Cax pause. The young analyst was never dramatic. If she thought this was important, perhaps it was worth listening. Very well. You have 10 minutes to convince me. Sieves activated her presentation. Director, we have been analyzing human capabilities wrong. We look at their technology, their weapons, their ships, but those are not what makes them dangerous. Then what does? Cax asked skeptically. Their psychology, their culture, their collective memory. Sevesh brought up images of human apocalyptic fiction. This is what humans think about. This is what they prepare for. They have been imagining the end of their world for their entire existence, as a thinking species. And in every scenario, they imagine themselves surviving. So they are optimists. That makes them weak, not dangerous. No director, they are not optimists. They are survivalists. There is a crucial difference. Gavesh pulled up analysis of human stories. In their fiction, billions die, civilization collapses, everything they built is destroyed, but there are always survivors. And those survivors always rebuild. It is not optimism, it is grim determination. She showed footage of human disaster preparedness, bunkers, seed vaults, knowledge archives, survival training taught to children. They prepare for extinction actively. They have protocols for everything. Pandemic response, nuclear war, asteroid impact. They have thought through scenarios that most species would never consider. All species have disaster plans. Karnak said, not like this. Seeves pulled up comparative data. When the Zeeli faced their solar flare crisis, their civilization collapsed. They had to be rescued by the Empire. When the Morsen encountered the plague, they panicked. When the Drathka lost their homeworld to tectonics, they barely survived. Your point? Humans have faced all of these things and more. Not hypothetically, actually. And they survived without outside help, every time. Seeves's voice became urgent. Director, they have been training for worst-case scenarios their entire existence. They do not just have disaster plans. They have culture-wide experience with disaster. Cax leaned back. You are saying they are prepared for us. I am saying they have been preparing for something like us for thousands of years, maybe longer. Look at their ancient mythology. Gods who destroy the world, monsters from the stars, great floods, fire from the sky. They have been imagining powerful forces, trying to end them since before they had writing. C brought up more data. And here is what frightens me most. In all their stories about alien invasion, they almost never win through superior technology. They win through adaptability, through sacrifice, through the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. She showed clips from a human film called Independence Day. Primitive aircraft attacking vastly superior alien ships. Humans using captured alien technology against them. A suicide attack destroying the mother ship. This is fantasy, but it reveals their thinking. They do not expect to be stronger. They expect to find a way anyway. Director Cax was quiet for a long moment. You believe the humans knew they could not match our military power. I believe they never intended to match it. I believe Ambassador Foss came to the Nexus with a completely different strategy. Not to show strength, to show inevitability. Explain. Fasesh pulled up the recording of Elena Voss in the throne room. Watch her carefully, Director. She is not trying to intimidate us. She is not even trying to impress us. She is simply presenting reality as she sees it. Humanity exists. Humanity will continue to exist. The Empire can choose to work with that reality or fight against it. But fighting reality never works. That is philosophical nonsense. Cax scoffed. Is it? Kegs showed data from the test of the human merchant fleet. They surrounded our best stealth ships with armed freighters. Not because they have better military, because they had planned for exactly this scenario. Because they have imagined every way someone might attack them and prepared responses. Paranoia, learned behavior. Seeves corrected. Director, humans spent 300,000 years as prey animals on their world. They were not apex predators. They were hunted by bigger, stronger, faster creatures. They survived by being smart, by cooperating, by preparing. Those instincts are still there. They assume everything is a threat until proven otherwise. Keck stood and paced. Even if everything you say is true, we are still vastly more powerful. We could destroy their world, could we? C asked quietly. Director, I analyzed their colonial distribution. They have settlements on 13 worlds now. None as large as Earth, but all sustainable. They have deep space stations. They have ships that could flee into the dark between stars. Even if we destroyed Earth, could we find every human settlement? Could we guarantee we killed them all? We could try. And then what? Savesh's voice was hard now. Every species in the Empire would know we committed genocide. Every vassal world would wonder if they might be next. We would create the very instability we claim to prevent, and somewhere surviving humans would remember. They would teach their children. They would wait decades, centuries even. And one day, They would come for revenge. You are being dramatic. Am I? Civ showed historical data. The Jews remembered Babylon. The Irish remembered England. The Armenians remembered the Ottomans. Humans nurse grudges across generations, across centuries. It is another survival mechanism. They never forget who wronged them. She looked directly at her supervisor. Director, if we go to war with humanity, even if we win, we lose. We create an eternal enemy, a species that will spend generations plotting our downfall. Is that worth it for what? To prove the Empire cannot be defied, Cox said heavily. The War Council will never accept this analysis. It makes us look weak, then presented as making us look smart. Seaviews suggested. The Empire has conquered hundreds of species, but we have never encountered one quite like this. One that has been preparing for us before they even knew we existed. One that has cultural experience with extinction and survival. We can either acknowledge this reality and adapt, or we can make a terrible mistake. What do you recommend? CVs had been waiting for this question. I recommend we seriously consider their proposal. Not because we are afraid of them, because they are offering us something unprecedented. A chance to have a relationship based on mutual interest rather than domination. Think about it, Director. If it works, we have a model for dealing with other strong species we encounter. If it fails, we have lost nothing we could not take by force later. And if they betray us, then we will be proven right about them being dangerous, and we deal with them accordingly. But Director, I do not think they will betray us, because they do not think in terms of betrayal. They think in terms of survival, and they have calculated that cooperation serves their survival better than conflict. Cax was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, I will arrange a meeting with the War Council. But Sivesh, if you are wrong about this, if the humans prove to be a threat we should have eliminated, it will be on your head. I understand, Director. But if I am right, and we destroy them unnecessarily, that stain will be on all of us. 3 days later, Seva stood before the War Council, the Emperor, and the Senate leadership. She was terrified but determined. She presented her findings, showed the cultural evidence, explained the psychology, made her argument. When she finished, the room was silent. Grand Admiral Cathazar spoke first. So your conclusion is that we should fear them because they make good stories? No, Admiral. My conclusion is that we should respect them because they have spent their entire existence preparing to survive anything, including us. Emperor Tholan leaned forward. You believe they cannot be conquered. I believe they can be killed, Your Majesty, but not conquered. Not truly. There is a difference. You can destroy humans, but you cannot make them submit. Not permanently. Their entire cultural history proves this. Senator Mia spoke. The young analyst makes interesting points. The humans are psychologically unusual, but psychology does not stop plasma cannons. No, Sivesish agreed. But psychology determines whether someone surrenders or fights to the last, and humans have shown repeatedly that they choose to fight. Ambassador Cyrus looked thoughtful. What you are describing is a species that cannot be integrated into the Empire as we currently operate. They will always resist, always push back, always seek independence. Yes, Sivesh said simply. Then we have only 2 choices, General Mokstar said. Destroy them or leave them alone. Or, Emperor Tholan said quietly, we choose the third option that Ambassador Voss offered. We recognize them as equals and see what happens. The room erupted in protests. The Emperor raised his hand for silence. I did not say I had decided. I said it was an option. Analyst Sivisesh has given us information to consider. Now we must think carefully about what to do with it. He looked at Kivisesh. You have done well, analyst. This report will be studied thoroughly. As Chesh left the chamber, she felt drained. She had done what she could. Now it was up to others to decide humanity's fate. But she had planted a seed of doubt, and sometimes doubt was enough. Emperor Thalvin did not sleep well anymore. For 6,000 cycles he had ruled with certainty. Every decision had been clear. Every choice had been obvious. The Empire expanded because it was strong. Species submitted because they were weak. This was the natural order of the universe. Then the humans arrived, and nothing was clear anymore. He stood alone in his private chambers, looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights was Earth. One small world, one stubborn species. They should have been insignificant. Instead, they had become the thing that kept him awake at night. The War Council was divided. Kethar wanted to eliminate the human threat. Cyrus wanted to negotiate. Moxar wanted to wait and see. The Senate argued endlessly. The vassal species whispered among themselves, wondering what this meant for them. And analyst Savesh's report sat on his desk, haunting him with its implications. He had read it 5 times now. Each time he found something new that troubled him. The humans were not like any species the Empire had encountered. They did not fit into any category. They were not strong enough to be respected as equals, but they were not weak enough to be dismissed as subjects. They were something else entirely, something unprecedented. A chime indicated someone requested entry. "Come," the Emperor said. Ambassador Cyrus entered and bowed. "Your Majesty, I apologize for the late hour, but I believe we need to speak about the humans, about our future, Your Majesty." She moved to stand beside him at the window. "The Empire is at a crossroads. How we handle humanity will define us for the next 1,000 cycles. You believe we should accept their proposal. I believe we should consider it seriously, not because they have forced us, but because it might be the wise choice." The Emperor looked at her. Cyrus had been his ambassador for 300 cycles. She had negotiated with hundreds of species. He trusted her judgment more than most. "Explain," he said simply. "Your Majesty, the Empire has grown through conquest. We are very good at conquest. But conquest only works when the conquered accept their status, when they believe resistance is futile, when they see submission as the logical choice, and the humans do not. No, Your Majesty, they do not. And I do not believe they ever will. We could destroy their military. We could occupy their worlds. We could impose our law, but we cannot make them truly submit." Analyst Tuvisesh was correct about that. Their culture, their history, their psychology, all point to the same conclusion. They will resist forever if they must. Then we destroy them completely. Cyrus was quiet for a moment. "We could try, Your Majesty. But at what cost? Not just the military cost, though that would be significant, but the political cost. Every species in the Empire would see us commit genocide against a species whose only crime was refusing to bow. What message does that send? That defiance brings destruction. Or that the Empire is afraid," Cyrus said softly. "That we are so insecure in our power that we must eliminate anyone who questions it. That we have become tyrants rather than leaders." The Emperor turned to face her fully. "You speak boldly, Ambassador. You asked for my counsel, Your Majesty. I give it honestly. The Empire was built on strength, yes, but also on the promise of order and prosperity. We told species that submission brought peace, safety, growth. For most species, that has been true. But what happens when we encounter a species that values freedom more than safety? Do we destroy them to maintain our image, or do we evolve?" "Evolve," the Emperor repeated. "Into what?" "Into something greater, Your Majesty. Imagine an empire that did not require submission, that offered partnership to those strong enough to stand beside us. We would still have our vassal species. Most would not change. But for species like humanity, we could offer something different. Recognition, respect, alliance rather than domination. The other vassal species would demand the same. Perhaps some would, but most would not. Most species joined the Empire because they needed protection, structure, order. They are content as they are. But Your Majesty, eventually we will encounter more species like humanity, strong, independent, unwilling to submit. We can create a model for dealing with them now. Or we can fight an endless series of wars against species that refuse to die." Emperor Tholan walked to his desk. He touched the datapad containing Sesh's report. The analyst said, "They have been preparing for us their entire existence. In a way, yes. They have been preparing to survive any threat. We are simply the latest one. And if we offer them partnership, if we show weakness, is it weakness to acknowledge reality? Your Majesty, the humans exist. They will continue to exist. We can either fight that reality or work with it. Fighting reality is the definition of foolishness, not strength. The emperor sat. He suddenly felt very old. What would my predecessor say? Those who built this empire through conquest and will. They would say that you inherited their empire and must do what is necessary to preserve it. Perhaps what is necessary has changed. Cyrus moved closer. Your Majesty, the empire has existed for 12,000 cycles. That is remarkable. But empires fall when they cannot adapt to new circumstances. The humans are a new circumstance. We can treat them as the threat that breaks us, or the challenge that makes us stronger. There was a long silence. Then the emperor said, Arrange a meeting with Ambassador Voss private, no war council. Angij Senate. Just her and me. Cyrus bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. Shall I tell her the topic of discussion? Tell her I want to talk. Nothing more. 5 days later, Ambassador Elena Voss returned to the Imperial Nexus. This time, there were no armed guards lining the docking bay, no dramatic displays of force, just Ambassador Cyrus waiting to greet her. Ambassador Voss, thank you for coming. Thank you for the invitation, Elena said. I admit I was surprised. The Emperor wishes to speak with you privately. No advisors, no witnesses, just two leaders having an honest conversation. Elena felt her pulse quicken. This was either very good or very bad. I am honored. She was led through quiet corridors to a small chamber. Not the throne room, just a simple meeting room with 2 chairs and a window showing the stars. Emperor Tholon was already there. He stood when she entered. Ambassador Voss, please sit. Elena sat. The Emperor sat across from her. For a moment neither spoke. Your Majesty, Elena began. Why did you not bring warships? The Emperor interrupted. When you came to my capital, you could have brought a show of force. You could have tried to intimidate us. Why one small ship? Elena considered her answer carefully. Because warships would have started a war we could not win. And because we did not come here to threaten anyone. We came to see if coexistence was possible. You came to see if we were reasonable. In a way, yes. We came to see if the Empire could imagine a galaxy that was not entirely under its control. And what did you conclude? That the jury is still out, Elena said honestly. You have the power to destroy us, but I do not believe you will, because doing so would cost you more than you would gain. You sound very confident about that. I am not confident, Your Majesty. I am hopeful. There is a difference. The Emperor leaned back. I have read a report about your species, about your culture, your history, your obsession with apocalypse and survival. Ah, Elena said. Someone has been doing their homework. The analyst who wrote it believes you cannot be conquered, that you will resist forever if necessary. The analyst is probably correct. You say that so calmly. Elena met his eyes. Your Majesty, I will be honest with you. Humans are terrified of you, of the Empire, of what you could do to us. We are a small species in a big galaxy. We have no illusions about our power relative to yours. But you still refuse to submit. Yes, because we have learned through terrible experience that submission does not guarantee survival. Sometimes it just means you die on your knees instead of your feet. We would rather take our chances standing. The Emperor was quiet. What if I told you I was considering your proposal, this mutual recognition treaty? Elena felt hope surge in her chest, but kept her voice level. I would ask why. Because I am tired, the Emperor said simply. I have ruled for 6,000 cycles. I have conquered hundreds of worlds. I have built an empire that will last 10,000 more cycles after I am gone. But I wonder sometimes if there is another way, a better way. There might be, Your Majesty, but it would require something difficult. What? Admitting that strength comes in many forms, that an empire based on forced submission is not the same as an empire based on willing cooperation, that you do not need to dominate everyone to be powerful. Pretty words, but words do not change reality. No, Elena agreed. Actions change reality, Your Majesty. If you offer humanity recognition as an equal, you would be the first emperor in the galaxy's history to do so. That would not be weakness. That would be vision. Or it would be the beginning of the end. Other species would demand the same treatment. Perhaps some would. But Your Majesty, think about what you would gain. Instead of fighting to hold an empire together through fear, you would have allies who chose to stand with you. Real allies, not subjects who plot rebellion in secret. partners who have a stake in your success. The Emperor stood and walked to the window. I have thought about this constantly since you left. I have imagined every outcome, the best case, the worst case. And I keep coming back to one question. What question? He turned to face her. What do you really want, Ambassador? Not the diplomatic answer. The truth. Elena stood as well. She walked to stand beside him at the window. We want what every species wants, Your Majesty. We want to survive, to grow, to explore, to build a future for our children. We want to look up at the stars and see possibility instead of threat. We want to meet other species and exchange ideas instead of weapons. We want to live in a galaxy where differences are celebrated instead of crushed. A naive dream, perhaps, but we are willing to work toward it anyway. And Your Majesty, I believe part of you wants the same thing. Otherwise, we would not be having this conversation. The Emperor looked at her for a long moment. Then he made his decision. I will accept your proposal with conditions. Elena's heart raced, but she kept her composure. I am listening. The treaty will be limited to humanity. Other species will not automatically receive the same status. We will monitor your compliance carefully. Any sign of aggression, any threat to imperial security, and the treaty is void. Understood. And in return, the Empire will recognize Earth and its colonies as sovereign territory. We will establish trade relations. We will exchange ambassadors. We will treat you as partners, not subjects. Your War Council will oppose this. They will adapt or be replaced. I am still the Emperor. Elena extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. The Emperor looked at it confused. She smiled. It is called a handshake, a sign of agreement between equals. Slowly, the Emperor reached out and took her hand. They shook once firmly. This is a beginning, Ambassador. Nothing more. If it fails, if your species proves unworthy of this trust, there will be consequences. If it fails, Your Majesty, it will be because one or both of us broke faith. We will do our part. I believe you will do yours. Why do you believe that? Because you are still here talking to me instead of sending warships. Because you read the report about my people and saw truth instead of threat. Because you are wise enough to know that the future does not have to look like the past. The Emperor almost smiled. You are either very brave or very foolish, Ambassador. As I said before, probably both. Elena smiled. Thank you, Your Majesty, for giving us this chance, for giving yourself this chance. 3 months later, the announcement was made. The Galactic Coordinated Empire and the United Earth Coalition had signed the first mutual recognition treaty in Imperial history. 2 sovereign powers acknowledging each other's right to exist. The galaxy watched in shock. Facile species whispered among themselves. Some felt hope, others felt jealousy, but all understood that something fundamental had changed. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. They had met the Empire and survived. They had maintained their freedom. They had proven that humanity could stand among the stars as equals, not subjects. On the Imperial Nexus, Grand Admiral Kethar watched the celebrations with a dark expression. This is a mistake, he told anyone who would listen. We have shown weakness. We will regret this. But Ambassador Cyrus smiled quietly. Change was always frightening to those invested in the old ways. But the Empire had survived for 12,000 cycles by being strong. Perhaps it would survive 12,000 more by being wise. In her small office, Analyst Savesh received a commendation for her work. She had helped avert a war and opened a new path for the Empire. She was proud, but also aware that this was just the beginning. Humanity would need to prove themselves worthy of the trust the Emperor had shown. The Empire would need to adjust to having partners instead of just subjects. Both sides would make mistakes. There would be tensions, conflicts, misunderstandings. But for the first time in Imperial history, there was an alternative to submission or destruction. There was a third way, and that possibility, however fragile, was worth protecting. Ambassador Ellen Voss returned to Earth a hero. She met with the coalition government and gave her report. They asked her if she thought the treaty would last. I do not know, she admitted. The Emperor is sincere, but he is also old. Eventually, someone else will rule. They may not share his vision. Then we prepare, said the coalition president. We build our strength. We honor the treaty, We prove ourselves valuable partners. But we never forget that our survival depends on ourselves, not on the Empire's goodwill. Agreed, Elena said. We have bought ourselves time, peace, room to grow. But we must use that time wisely, because the galaxy is watching to see if we fail. We will not fail, the President said firmly. We have survived ice ages and plagues. We have survived world wars and near extinction. We will survive this too. Elena looked out at Earth, spinning peacefully below the orbital station. Home, still free, still human. Yes, she said quietly. We will survive because that is what humans do. We survive, we adapt, we endure, and we never ever give up. Far away, the Empire continued its expansion. Fleets moved between stars. Trade flourished. New species were contacted and integrated. The machinery of Empire rolled on. But now there was something new. A species that had said no and lived. A precedent, a possibility. In the dark between the stars, human ships continued their quiet exploration, building colonies, establishing trade routes, making friends and allies among smaller species. The Empire watched them carefully. Humans watched the Empire just as carefully. Two predators circling each other, neither trusting the other completely, neither willing to strike first, both aware that the game they were playing had rules that were still being written. And in that tense equilibrium, both sides found something unexpected. Peace. Not the peace of submission. Not the peace of domination, but the peace of mutual respect between those strong enough to destroy each other, but wise enough not to try. It was fragile, it was imperfect, it was uncertain, but it was real, and for the first time in a very long time, both the Empire and humanity could look to the future and see something other than conflict. They could see possibility. The galaxy would never be the same. The old rules had been challenged. The old certainties had been questioned. And while the outcome was far from certain, one thing was clear. Humanity had walked into the galactic capital. The Empire had expected panic. The Empire had prepared for war. But what the Empire received was something far more powerful than either. Silence, patience, and the quiet, unshakable confidence of a species that had already survived the worst the universe could offer. And that made all the difference.